Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's been a few weeks, but we're back. Got another deck tech. This is a little bit of an interesting brew because it doesn't follow quite the same usual lines as most of my other decks. So we're using the commander Sokka, Tenacious Tactician. So out of the Avatar set, so this is one white, red, blue for a 3/3 legendary human warrior ally with menace and prowess. Other allies you control have menace and prowess, and then whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. Alright? So this deck is leaning into the idea of playing a whole bunch of non-creature spells to make bodies on your board, and then give them prowess and menace, and then make them hard to block, and make them big, and get people dead. The tricky part with this deck is that trying to find the balance between the creatures that you want in the list and the spells you want in the list. This is very spell heavy, and I don't know if this is really the right version of it. I don't know if this is like what I'm going to settle on. This is where I'm at right now, and maybe in a couple of months I go and change it and add some pieces, take out some pieces, but this is where I'm at right now. All right, so I thought this would be a fun deck to sort of show you guys what you can do with this particular commander, and maybe you guys can iterate on it too and make it kind of interesting. All right, let's start with that. So we're talking about wanting to play lots of non-creature spells. Now this plays in the same space as Kaikar Wind's Fury, which is same casting cost, 3/3 flying. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying, and then sacrifice a spirit to add one red mana. So these are basically playing in the same space. They do pretty much the same thing. I like Sokka personally, so that's why I'm using it as my commander. But Kaikar is in the list for exactly the same reason, because it does exactly the same thing that you want to do. Now, I want to cast lots of non-creature spells, make lots of mana, and then turn that into, hopefully chain that into yet more spells. So let's talk this through. So the first thing I'm going to look through is obviously you need a ramp package, all right? You need a ramp package of artifacts that are going to be able to sit in the battlefield. So we got a Sol Ring, nothing fancy there. Mine's a proxy because I've actually run out of copies of Sol Ring in my collection, but I've got a Sol Ring. So we got an Arcane Signet. That's a cute, nice looking one there, Arcane Signet. We've got a Boros Signet, an Azorius Signet, and an Izzet Signet. So we got all the signets, all sorts of 2-mana ramp. That's all the artifacts I have that play with this particular strategy. But there's lots of other ways to make things cost less mana, or create more mana. So let's talk about what those are. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about things that make my instant sorceries cost less. So I've got Case of the Ransacked Lab. So 2 in a blue, instant sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. And then you can solve it if you cast 4 or more instant spells this turn. And then when it's solved, whenever you cast an instant or a sorcery spell, draw a card. So this is going to allow that once if you can trigger it, you can then use it as a way to basically cantrip through all your instants of sorceries. We have Primal Amulet. So this is 4 mana for an artifact. Instant sorceries you cast cost 1 less. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a charge counter on Primal Amulet. Then if there are 4 or more charge counters on it, you may remove those counters and transform it. Now, when you transform it, it turns into a land, and so it turns into Primal Wellspring. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. When the mana is spent to cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy that spell. So you make copies, which is kind of exactly the space that this deck ends up playing in. It plays a lot of copy effects and ways to sort of use your spells a second time. We have a Baral, Chief of Compliance. So that's 1 in a blue for a 1/3. Instant sorcery spells cost 1 less. Whenever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. I'm not really leaning into the counterspell mechanic. I am mostly playing that so I can get the cost reduction. We have Goblin Electromancer, red blue for a 2/2. Instant and sorcery spells you control cost 1 less. And then Jace's Sanctum, 3 in a blue. Enchantment, instant sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, scry 1. Okay, So I'm going to look to make my instants and sorcery spells really, really cheap if I can. But I'm going to have lots of other ways that are going to make me mana. So let's talk about the ways we're going to make mana with our spells. Alright, so first off we have Strike It Rich. Strike It Rich is a single red. It's a sorcery, create a treasure token, and it's flash back for 2 and a red. Makes you another treasure. Okay? So that's essentially, you may as well say, for make a red mana whenever you need to. Rite of Flame, very similar text. Single red, make red red, and as additional text, it doesn't matter. Then you add red to your mana pool for each card named Rite of Flame in each graveyard. Unlikely to even get to matter, but I like it as a red ritual effect. Battle Hymn, so 1 and a red for an instant. Add red to your mana pool for each creature you control. When you have lots of spirits and tokens on the battlefield, this can make an awful lot of red to make you be able to power through your stuff. We have an Infernal Plunge, so single red. As an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature, add red, red, red to your mana pool. Alright, so super useful, and you even probably will get the body back that you sacrificed for it. Then we've got some big ones. We've got Mana Geyser. So Mana Geyser is red, red, and 3. Add red for each tapped land your opponents control, and it's a sorcery. Alright, then we go even bigger. We have Brass's Bounty. So Brass's Bounty is 6 and a red for a sorcery. For each land you control, create a colorless treasure token with tap that sacrifice of this artifact to add a mana of any color. Alright, and then last but not least, we have Sozin's Comet. So 3 red, red. Each creature you control has firebending 5 until end of turn, and you can foretell it for 2 and a red. Meaning you can then put it into exile and then cast it at a later date. All those red spells looking to create very large sums of mana, so you can then do some really dumb things with all that mana. Some of it is going to make more treasures. So we've got sort of the hallmark of this card is Stormkill Artist. Now, if you're going to play any sort of a storm style deck, you're playing this little guy here because of the Magecraft ability. So it's 3 and a red for a 2/2. It gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control. You don't really care about that. What you do is the Magecraft, though, whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, create a treasure token. Meaning that if you start copying things and start casting lots of spells, you're going to start banking treasures that you can then use to do other things. We have a Galzeth Prismari, so 2 blue red for a 3/4 flying dragon. Whenever Galzeth Prismari enters the battlefield, create a treasure token. Artifacts you control get tap, add 1 mana of any color, spend this mana only to cast instant or sorcery spells. So, again, mostly going to rely on that to help me power out yet more spells, but, you know, sometimes you're going to end up needing to use those treasures to do other stuff. Zorn is going to be extra good, so 2 and a red. If you would create a treasure token, make an extra one, so there's lots of treasures made, so you're going to make it double them. J. Jonah Jameson is kind of a new inclusion from Spider-Man that I've been trying to play around with. 2 and a red for a 2/2 legendary creature, human citizen. J. Jonah Jameson enters, suspect up to 1 target creature. Whenever a creature you control with menace attacks, create a treasure token. Since all the ally tokens will have menace, because if you have Sokka on the battlefield, they get menace, you attack with them, and now you make a lot of treasures you can then use to power out stuff. And we have Generous Plunderer, so 1 and a red for a 2/2. It has menace. It is a human rogue. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may create a treasure token. When you do, target opponent creates a tap treasure token. Whenever Generous Plunderer attacks, it deals damage to each defending player equal to the number of artifacts they control. Alright, this is, again, just a way to make lots of treasures that you're going to be able to use to power out stuff. If that wasn't enough, you might run into something like Burgi or Urabrask. So these are going to make, anytime you cast a spell, it's going to make red mana. Sorry, not quite true. Burgi says whenever you cast a spell, add red. Until the end of turn, you don't lose mana as steps and phases end. And then creatures you control can boast twice during each of your turns. I'm not really boasting with this. Now, if you need to, you can cast the other side of Burgi, which is also quite useful. This is Hornfeld, Horn of Bounty, so 4 and a red for a legendary artifact. Discard a card, exile up to 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. So, in the later stages of the game, if you draw this, you don't really need the mana. Maybe you got lots of treasures banked, but you need cards. You're going to cast this as the Horn and then start discarding things to get access to other cards in your deck. Urabrask is similar. So Urabrask is 2 red for a 4/4 with first strike, and it's a legendary Phyrexian Praetor. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it deals 1 damage to target opponent and add a single red. And then red, exile Urabrask, then return to the battlefield transformed under his owner's control. Activate only as a sorcery, and only if you can cast 3 or more instant or sorcery spells this turn. Okay, that's a lot of work. You're really just looking to bank the red mana off the instant sorceries, and I can't even read the back side of it right now. So, Chapter 1, the Great Work deals 3 damage to target opponent and each creature they control. Chapter 2 is create 3 treasure tokens, and Chapter 3, until end of turn, you may cast instant sorcery spells from your graveyard. If a spell cast this way may be put into a graveyard, exile it instead. Exile the Great Work, then return to the battlefield. Alright, so it comes back as Urabrask. So, again, if you can flip it, that's just like extra gravy. That means things are going really, really well for you. You're looking mostly to use this as a way to create red mana and maybe deal a little bit of damage. Alright, now, when I'm casting all sorts of spells, let's talk about how I'm going to damage my opponents and get them dead. So, primarily the way you do that is by having effects that when creatures enter the battlefield or whenever you cast spells, you ping your opponent. So, for instance, Gutter Snape is sort of the classic, so 2 and a red for a 2/2 with Goblin Shaman. Whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, Gutter Snape deals 2 damage to each opponent. This sort of effect is sort of generically sprinkled through in the deck. So you get things like Firebrand Archer, very similar, 1 and a red. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Firebrand Archer deals 1 damage to each opponent. And then, last but not least, we have Ral, Storm Conduit, so 2 and a red and a blue for a 4 loyalty. His static is, whenever you cast a copy or an instant or sorcery, Ral, Storm Conduit deals 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. And then you can +2 to scry 1, -2 whenever you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Again, that's the second such instance we have of copying things. We'll get to some more. Then we've got things like Shocking Sharpshooter, so 1 and a red for a 1/3 with reach. It's a human archer. Whenever another creature you control enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to target opponent. Alright, so we have an Impact Tremors, and we also have a Witty Roastmaster. So as we cast more and more sorceries and instants from our deck, we're going to make more and more dudes, which then is going to allow us to then ping our opponents to death. Alright. Let's talk about how we're going to draw cards to make sure we keep our hand full. All right. We have an Is It Charm. So Is It Charm is very utilitarian because it's a red and a blue for an instant that has choose 1. Counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 2. I'm not really looking at this as a way to draw to do that, but if you need to, it's kind of handy. Is It Charm deals 2 damage to target creature. Again, not really what I'm looking for. The final mode is draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. So this is often going to be draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, make a treasure, make some mana, whatever else, so that you can then keep churning through your deck. All right? We have Frantic Search, same sort of idea, 2 and a blue, instant, draw 2 cards, and discard 2 cards, untap up to 3 lands. All right? So same idea, churn through your deck, get the velocity to go see more things. Expressive Iteration, red and a blue for a sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand, one of them under the bottom, put 1 of them into exile. You may play the exile card this turn. All right, so again, keeps you churning and digging. We have Brainstorm. So Brainstorm's draw a single blue, draw 3 cards, and put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. We have a Dig Through Time. Dig Through Time is 6 blue, is an instant with Delve. Look at the top 7 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Okay, so you're going to look 7 deep. Maybe you copy it, you look 14 deep. You're going to find lots of good things. Faithless Looting, single red, draw 2, then discard 2, and you can flash it back for 2 and a red. We have Whirlwind of Thought, so 1 blue, red, white for an enchantment. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, draw a card. So this is going to really matter when you start firing and churning through your deck and build up a pretty good velocity of things. You'll have mana because it makes lots of mana. And then this is going to keep the cards flowing so you can then keep going off. All right. We've got a Treasure Cruise, same sort of thing as the Dig Through Time. 7 and a blue, Delve, draw 3 cards. Okay. And then last but not least, we have Prismari Command. So Prismari Command is 1 blue, red. You can choose 2 though this time. Prismari Command deals 2 damage to any target. Target player draws 2 cards, then discards 2 cards. Target player creates a treasure token and just destroy target artifact. The primary modes here are going to usually be the draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, and make a treasure. But sometimes you're going to surprise yourself and you find yourself doing other things. All right, then we've got lots and lots of interaction here of all varieties of sorts that are going to help us to delay our opponents and deal with their boards. So we've got a couple of counter spells. So we've got Render Silent. So white, blue, instant counter target spell. Its controller can't cast spells this turn. The forcing them to not cast any more spells is kind of a big issue. They don't really like that one. We have Invert Polarity. So blue, red. For an instant, choose target spell, then flip a coin. If you win the flip, gain control of that spell, and you may choose new targets for it. If you lose the flip, counter that spell. So guaranteed is a counter spell at its worst. At best, you get to steal the thing and then do whatever it is you want to do with it. Bolt Bend is a really good way to make sure that you don't get targeted. So it's 4 and a red. Instant, the spell costs 3 less to cast if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. Change the target spell or ability with a single target. Okay, so they want to destroy my commander. I can deflect that somewhere else. We have a Boros Charm. So a white and a red for an instant. Choose one. Boros Charm deals 4 damage to target player or permanent. To target player. Permanents you control gain indestructible this turn, or target creature gains double strike until end of turn. All right, now I am using this mostly as a protection spell, but there are times when if you get your storm count up high enough, just going to someone's dome with it and making copies of it is all you need to do, and makes it, can make it a pretty effective burn spell to kill somebody out of nowhere. All right, Kabira Takedown. So 1 and a white for an instant. Kabira Takedown deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature or planeswalker. This is an MDFC, so it's a land on the other side. Usually I want to play it as a land. However, it's good to know I have interaction if I need it. Same thing with Razorgrass Ambush. 1 and a white. Razorgrass Ambush deals 3 damage to target attacking or blocking creature, and it is an instant as well. It is also an MDFC. We have Spectacular Spider-Man. This is the other Spider-Man card that I think is actually pretty good. 1 and a white for a 3/2 with Flash. 1 Spectacular Spider-Man gains flying until end of turn. 1 sacrifice Spectacular Spider-Man. Creatures you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So flash it in, protect your board, make sure you don't get blown out. Kazul's Fury. So 2 and a red. This is a fling effect, but it's also an MDFC on the other side, meaning it has double utility again. We have a good old counterspell, one of my favorite style from Ice Age. We also have a Cast into the Ring. Cast into Fire. So 1 and a red for instant, choose 1. Cast into Fire deals 1 damage to each of up to 2 target creatures. Exile target artifact. In a world where we're starting to see more and more indestructible artifacts that are really hard to deal with, I like the ability to reach out and exile it, and so this is really good for me. So I really like Cast into Fire. And then Volatile Storm Drake. So this is a Gilded Drake for poor people like me. 1 and a blue for a 3/2 Flying Drake. Flying hexproof from activated or triggered abilities. When Volatile Drake enters the battlefield, exchange control of Volatile Storm Drake and target creature and opponent controls. If you do, you get 4 energy. Then sacrifice that creature unless you pay an amount of energy equal to its mana value. I like this because at worst, I get to take your thing, and if I can't pay for it, I sacrifice it, it dies. Or I get to take your best thing. All right, I like the just good, useful abilities. All right. We've got some other impactful things that we're going to do here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about what happens when we start storming off and chaining off a bunch of stuff. So we've got some really cool cards here that are, actually, I don't know why this one's here. So this is Jace Vryn's Prodigy, 1 and a blue for a 0/2. It turns into a Planeswalker, so you can bring things back. But we start with these ones here. So we have Elsha of the Infinite, Jeskai Ascendancy, and Veyron Voice of Duality. So Elsha, let's start with here. So this is 2 blue, red, white for a 3/3 legendary creature, Djinn Monk with Prowess. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast non-creature spells to the top of your library. If you cast a spell this way, you may cast it as though it had flash. So you can just start chaining through your deck and burning through things. All right. Next, we have Veyron Voice of Duality. So 1 blue, red for a 2/2 with Magecraft. It is an Efreet. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Veyron Voice of Duality gets +1/+2 until end of turn. If you casting or copying an instant or sorcery spell causes the triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger. That ability triggers an additional time. So you start casting things, and Sokka gets you will start getting you twice the number of tokens or Kaikar, and then you're going to get double prowess triggers on them all and Veyron. So it just allows you to just build your board up and make yourself allowed to go, kind of crazy. And then Jeskai Ascendancy, so blue, red, white for an enchantment. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Untap those creatures. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. All right. So these together are going to allow us to see lots of cards, draw lots of cards, and then reap lots of benefit, so that our tokens, our ally tokens, get really big, get very difficult to deal with, and allow to untap and maybe convoke things or do other such stuff. All right. We have some other cool things here that are going to be good ways to win the game with creature combat if need be. So we've got Cathar's Crusade, we have United Front, and we have Katara Water Tribe's Hope. Let's talk about Cathar's Crusade first. So 3 white for an enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So every time you cast an instant or a non-creature spell, you make another ally. Cathar Crusade would see that, put counters on all your team, and they get them really big. It's unwieldy to manage, and I don't usually run it as a win condition, but if you're going to go token wide, then it's a good way to help you get there. United Front. So this is X white sorcery. Choose create X 1/1 white ally creature tokens. Then put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So this is going to be, with all that mana you've created, you're going to be allowed to use that mana to make a very large number of things, which then could be enough to win if you have impact tremors or such things to deal enough damage. Maybe just build you a big board. Maybe you have haste. We'll talk about the haste in a second. So you have different ways that you can turn that into a win out of nowhere. And then we have Katara Water Tribe's Hope. So 2 white, blue for a 3/3 with vigilance. It is a human warrior ally. When Katara enters, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. And then Waterbend X. Creatures you control have base power and toughness X until end of turn. X can't be 0. If you activate Katara, that's like an overrun effect. So if you can you can tap a bunch of tokens to help pay the Waterbend cost on this, you're going to the tokens you do have are going to be very, very big, and you're hopefully going to win that way. But we're not done yet. All right, we've got a silly package of things over here that you're going to want to use. So let's talk about this card. This card is actually pretty cool. Adaptive Training Post. So 2 and a blue it's an artifact. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if this artifact has fewer than 3 charge counters on it, put a charge counter on it. Remove 3 charge counters from this artifact. When you next cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy it, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So again, we're into copying things. You're going to see in a second why we're going to copy things. But we got that. We also have something like a 1,000-Year Storm. So we have 4 blue, red for an enchantment. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it for each other instant sorcery spell you've cast before it this turn. You may choose new targets for the copies. So this is like, the big payoff here, that you're going to cast a whole bunch of derpy spells, draw some cards, burn your way through your deck. Maybe you're going to flash some other things back and forth. We'll talk about that in a second. And then you're going to get them with something like a gut shot, or you're going to get them like a grape shot, or you're going to cast Haze of Rage. So these are going to be things that are going to allow you to finish the game, get people dead. So gut shot, here we go. So Phyrexian red, gut shot deals 1 damage to target creature or player. So you can cast it essentially for free if you don't have any mana left over anymore. The idea being here that you then cast a whole slew of spells all the way through the deck. Maybe you've made a bunch of copies of stuff, you've made a whole lot of treasures, whatever else, and then to finish everybody off, you do this, and maybe you get it for 10 or 12 or 15 damage to finish off the game. All right, Grape Shot's another one. So Grape Shot's got Storm, so 1 in a red. Grape Shot deals 1 damage to any target, and it's got Storm. So you're going to count things, count up based on the number of spells cast this turn, and get people dead that way. And then Haze of Rage, 1 in a red, is a sorcery with buyback, and creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn, and Storm. So the fact that you can buy it back, so with all the mana you've produced, with your Burgi, or your Urabrask, or your treasure tokens, or your Rites of Flames, or whatever else, you should be able to buy this back and cast it a few times. And then once you start casting it and make copies of it, your ally tokens see that and get really big and get really scary, and your opponents are going to be wondering why they're not dead yet. But it's coming. So, last but not least in this category, we have a Mystic's Mastery and a Past in Flames. So, Mystic Mastery is 3 in a red. Exile target card. That's an instant or sorcery from your graveyard. For each card exiled this way, copy it. You may cast the copy of it without paying its mana cost. Exile Mystic's Mastery, and you can overload it for 5 red. This is a huge spell. If you cast this, it's going to take you a while, but you can basically recast your whole graveyard for all the instant sorceries in your graveyard. Or you can do Past in Flames. So this is 3 in a red sorcery. Each instant sorcery card in your graveyard gain flashback till end of turn. Flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. So and then you can flash it back for 4 in a red. So again, you get access to the spells in your graveyard, so you can keep chaining through things and burning stuff out. Last but not least, we have an infinite combo here that is actually pretty funny and is going to be hilarious. So this is Trusty Boomerang. This is a terrible artifact from Avatar, but it says 1 mana artifact equipment. Equipped creature has 1 tap target creature, return Trusty Boomerang to its owner's hand, and then equip for 1. So this doesn't look like much, but it triggers your Sokka, right? So you play it, you make a dude, and you're going to be able to equip this on the dude. You're like, why would I want to do that? That's pretty terrible. Well, you have Mana Echoes in the deck. So Mana Echoes is 2 red for an enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may add an amount of colorless mana equal to the number of creatures you control that share a creature type with it. So you're going to be naming ally token, right? Ally. And so you play the Trusty Boomerang, and if you have 2, 3, 4 ally tokens on the battlefield, you're going to make some extra mana, which allows you to equip it, tap it, and return it to your hand to recast it and repeat the process. Now, the dilemma you run into is that because the creature gains tap, you have to tap the creature. Haste is an issue because you need to have haste creatures if you're going to keep going, because otherwise you eventually get gate kept. Now, in my experience, doing this and making a lot of colorless mana is all you really need to do. You don't necessarily need to go infinite, but you can. So you can go infinite with something like Frostcliff Siege. So 1 blue-red for an enchantment. As this enchantment enters, choose Jeskai or Teamer. Jeskai, whenever 1 or more creatures enter the battlefield under your control, deal combat damage to a player, you draw a card. Okay, I'm not really looking to do that particularly, but maybe. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and trample and haste. Okay, so now my creatures that I have come in with haste. So I make a bunch of mana. I replay Trusty Boomerang, make another dude, make a whole bunch more mana, equip it. Since it has haste, I can tap it right away, return it to my hand, and repeat the process, making an infinite amount of colorless mana. It's going to make me an infinite number of 1/1 creature tokens with haste. Eventually, you're going to win that way. If you have an Impact Tremors effect, you're going to be able to do that. You're going to be able to win the game from nowhere out of this. The other way to do it here is going to be Enduring Courage, which also gives your things haste. This is one of my favorite cards, just outright. So it grants things haste. Either way, you're going to have a way to make sure that your creatures have haste and can attack right off the hop. All right, so that's the list. All right, it's very, very dubious. If this is sort of like the Mad Machine, there's going to be days when this fizzles out and doesn't really do what you want it to do. There will be other days where this thing pops off like crazy and you stomp the table. All right, it's a little bit because it's a little bit fragile. It can come apart pretty readily. And maybe you out there in the internet can see an angle or a line of attack that I haven't already thought of that might be cool. So this deck, I'm playing it, and there's playing with proxies, and I got all sorts of stuff in it because I've got pieces in other decks and whatever else. It's not terribly expensive to go and get because the Mana Echoes is probably the most expensive card in the deck. at about $65 Canadian, about 50 American. It's pretty expensive for a card that hasn't been printed very often. Everything else in here is pretty affordable, and you notice it's not crazy, like unheard of cards. So you can put it together reasonably accessibly. The mana base is where you end up getting hurt because you're playing a 3-color deck. Having the right dual lands to allow you to cast your spells on curve is a big deal. But again, if you're well on your way and you've got a pretty invested mana base, and you can do everything you need to do here without too much difficulty. All right, the list is down below in the show notes. I mean, I encourage you all to go have a look and let me know what you think. It's a lot of fun. I've enjoyed playing this deck and building it and assembling it. It's kind of like a work of love. All right, it's not necessarily a great deck, but it's a fun deck. It would probably fall as a bracket 3 deck because of the fact it does have combo lines in it that can sort of surprise people out of nowhere. I know it's not a 2-card combo, but some people, would want to see that play at a higher bracket level instead of playing at a bracket 2. All right. If you like what you hear, you can check out all the rest of the deck techs here on the channel. They're all down below. Or if you want to hear more, our podcast, you can hear more of our weekly content on our podcast. The link is also down below in the show notes. I think otherwise, don't forget, please like and subscribe. We've had some new people join us here on the channel. We'd love to have a few more get with us and help us grow the channel. But yeah, that's all we got for tonight. Thanks very much, everybody. Have yourself a great one. Talk to you again next week. Talk to you soon. Peace.